Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode in our Truth series. And I'm really excited today because I have put out a challenge to my co-creator of this podcast, Deni, and I am today going to ask her about her 3 most powerful truths at this time. So welcome, Deni.
You're excited because this is you sitting in the comfortable position of asking me my truths.
Absolutely. Well, I know you're a truth seeker. So, and I can't believe that we have ever, or we have not ever had this conversation. We've never really asked each other what those truths are for ourselves. And we've sat here and had many conversations with other people now, but we haven't done this for ourselves. So it felt right. It felt like a really good time to dive into this with you. And I'm, because some of our juiciest conversations take place outside of the podcast. We always say, I wish we'd hit the record button then and recorded that one.
So that's why I think we probably have had this conversation in many different ways, but just not framed it in this way.
Exactly. So I'm excited to see what that brings today. But before we dive into your truths, what I'd really love to do is ask you just a couple of questions about yourself, just to let other people get to know you a little bit more. I know the answer to some of these questions, but I don't know all of the answers. So I just want to throw a few questions out to you first and see where we go. So the first one is really, where do you live? Where do you live now in the world, and where are you originally from?
Okay. I'm currently in the northern beaches of Sydney, but I'm a New Zealander. But I've now lived longer in Australia than I have in New Zealand, but identify very much with my Kiwi roots. I was born in Wellington in New Zealand, and I lived there until I was about 8, moved with the family to Auckland, and I probably left there permanently at about 21. And I have all my brothers, well, most of my brothers and sisters still living there, but yeah, I'm actually a Kiwi, not an Australian.
Yeah. Wow, beautiful. And you've settled here on the northern beaches, which is a beautiful part of the world, of course.
Oh, it is.
We're both
I came here for a year fee. I don't know how many years, 20 something years ago, just for a year.
And here you are. And then another question, I think I know the answer to this, but I might be wrong. So are you an early bird or a night owl?
I'm more of an early person, I think. I mean, I say that, but I'm not one of those. I do struggle to get up and watch the sun rising. But I naturally go to bed at about 10:30 every night. So yeah, I would say I was more of a daytime person these days than a night owl. Maybe in my younger years, maybe I was more of a night owl. But yeah, these days, I'm day. I'm definitely day.
And then I guess what I'd love is for you to share any kind of morning routines or practices that you have, and or any kind of self-care practices that you work with.
Okay. This was my word of 2021 was consistency, and yet probably my practices continue to be inconsistent. But that can also be due to our changing world and COVID. Consistently, what do I put into my days? And that would be some form of nature. I spend a fair amount of time walking, although the reason why I hesitate to say consistent is during this last lockdown, I haven't been as called to leave home as much, so I haven't done as much of that connection with earth, other than like the plants around me at home. But generally speaking, that is, I would say, my number one spiritual practice is spending time walking either out in the bush or more of the time on the beach and connecting that way, just walking, doing nothing else. But probably this year, I mean, I see my art as a spiritual practice, and I do that nearly every day. Probably one of the things I do almost first thing in the morning is I get up and I just create, and I do it from a really, I usually start a new painting, which is the most free you can be when you're painting, or the most free I can be when I paint is just playing. And that's just puts me into such a beautiful state. It's meditative state, really, when I'm creating. So those two are really important to me. And they've probably been the most consistent this year.
Beautiful. And do you currently sell your artwork? And if so, where can people find it?
Well, I mean, I do, and I have, and I'm asked that a lot at the moment, and I'm resisting because I'm finding a new style. So until I'm like creating a group of work that feels really complete to me, I'm not really putting it out there, but it is definitely something that I'm working towards, and will happen definitely within the next 6 months.
Beautiful. And so it's a watch this space.
Definitely. I do have a website, so you can see my artwork and everything on there, which is denirayneau.com. So I do have, or on Insta, you know, I'm posting nearly every day, just things that I'm creating.
Excellent. So people can seek you out there.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful. Okay, so let's dive in, because I've been looking forward to this all week.
The tables have turned.
Yes, absolutely. And I know that at some point there'll be come back and I'll be in the hot seat. But for now, I'm going to pose the first question to you, Deni. What is your first most powerful truth that's rising in you at this time?
Well, before I dive into that, I want to speak a little bit about the process to get there, because when you spoke to me about this, which was about 2 weeks ago, you know that truth is my driving force. So I'm always looking to uncover new levels of depth and truth in all realms of my life. It can be a really frustrating thing for those that live with me, because if I don't feel it to be true, I will just keep going until I find the underlying feeling. So when you brought this up to me, I thought, oh, I got this. This is going to be easy. And then it sent me on so many different paths. And I've got a notes in my phone that's like this long with so many different truths. And then, is that a truth? And, you know, I went into, is it a truth? Is it a belief? And all of those places. But I guess where I came back to, and I spoke about this on the podcast, was dropping from my head into my heart and finding my knowings, the things that I at the moment believe to be true. And I do believe that truth is a movable state, that as we grow and as we transform, our truths move and transform with us. And I also believe one of the most generous things we can do for each other is to not hold each other in our truths. That it's incredibly generous to hear someone's truths and then allow them to be a new person to you every day. So with that, framing all that I think about truths, I've picked out 3 that, you know, I guess I realize one is a new one for me this year, and the other 2 have been with me for quite a while, and I sit and I live by them, really. So my first truth is about shadow, unsurprisingly. And that is the power of our shadow. To me, like the place of discomfort is the growth edge for me. That when we turn away from our shadow and we look at just the light side of us, we leave 50% of all that we can be behind. So in all the places that are discomfort, in our fear, in our failure, and in our weaknesses, there's just so much richness and so much. Well, actually, I think that's where it's at. That's where our growth is. It's in those edges, the things that give us discomfort. So when we feel, or when I feel discomfort, I know I'm in a growth state. And when I'm in that place and when I shine a light on it and when I share it, that's when I'm vulnerable. And I think that vulnerability is just one of the strongest emotions, places we can go. And one of the biggest gifts we can give each other is those vulnerable places. One of my favorite sayings is a Jung saying, and I think on the internet it comes out as until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you'll call it fate. Actually, the way that he said it was, when an inner situation is not made conscious, it happens outside us as fate. When an individual remains undivided, it does not become conscious and does not become conscious of his inner opposite. The world acts out that conflict. And it just comes to that real belief that of mine, that we're 360 degrees of a human being. And I think that a lot of us live thinking that we're 180 and that there's this part that we're happy to show the world. And there's this whole different level of depth that we can bring to us in the places that it feels uncomfortable to show.
Beautiful. And I know that you and I have both been on some interesting journeys through the shadow, well, kind of the understanding. I mean, I think I might be right in saying, and I'm sure you'll correct me with your truth here, that, you know, when we first started working together a few years ago, you considered yourself the shadow worker, and I considered myself I don't like to use the light worker term because that feels very fluffy and light to me, which has been kind of misrepresented, I think, in the spiritual community. But my natural way of working is to bring whatever needs to be brought into the light, and yours is diving into, and we did for a while, I think, consider ourselves to be these two opposites, opposing sides of something. And then we, I think, again felt that our journey was around, oh, we complement each other so much. And then we went into this beautiful journey of realizing that we both work with the shadow and the light. We just do it the opposite way round, or we do it in a different way to each other, and that both were parts of ourselves. So I'd love you to speak to that a little bit.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I do remember the very first retreat that you and I held together, the discomfort you sat with me saying that we had to get this group to a vulnerable state. Otherwise, I don't know any other way to really get a group to open up and become bonded and close without that vulnerability. But things have changed. You know, we've done this for a few years, and I agree with you. We really are coming from a really similar place. We just frame it differently. And part of that reframing of me happened with my moths. You know, I've had moths come to me my whole life. I mean, my brothers would tell you that as a kid, they used to have to clean out my bedroom of moths. And it's been something that's hilarious and has happened until recently, that if a moth's in the room and I come into the room, the moth will show. And then when I leave and send someone into the room to go and find the moth and remove it, they can't find it until I move in. And I just always thought I was the moth, and reframing it to understand that moths are attracted to light gave me a real depth of actually what shadow work is, and that is bringing the light to the depths, lighting up the shadow so that those places can be seen and can be witnessed. And that is where the strength lies. That's where you get the growth and the learnings and the transformation. So yeah, I think that at the end of the day, we're both coming from that place, shining a light into the shadow.
Yeah, and I know that, you know, through that way that you work, which I've witnessed on many occasions, I can see the beautiful journey that you can take people on, because you're very comfortable in the uncomfortableness of that. So you can really support people through that journey, which is actually beautiful to witness and be a part of as you explore that with them. But it's sometimes that uncomfortable place is so difficult for people to be in. They need someone there to kind of guide them through that. It's okay, you know, I can support you through this, which is what I feel you do beautifully.
Yeah. And I think that's, you know, you've got to have that level of trust, knowing that someone can hold you no matter what when you're doing that kind of shadow work. And I have my my South Node in Scorpio, and it's very much a very comfortable place for me to sit, is in those hidden realms. It's something I brought in with me, and I know it. I know it well.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, I for one love the way that you have framed this, because I think it's really important for us to all understand that these are equal parts of ourselves that are, you know, so part of our journey. We cannot have one without the other. It's just spiritual bypassing if we're not prepared to go to the depth of what our shadow is showing us. And I know myself from my own personal journey that all my greatest healings or insights or inner growth spurts have come from that place. They've all come from going where I didn't really want to go and knew that I had to.
Yeah, and with your word being balance, you know, that being your driving force, we've got the two poles, right? You cannot have one without the other. And the beauty of the shadow is that what we find there usually becomes it's usually where our gifts are hidden. So when we're prepared to go into the uncomfortable places and shine a light there, what I've witnessed again and again and again is that these gifts are there. This kind of magic is under, you know, it's the flip side of what you consider to be these places that are that we want to get rid of. It's actually not about getting rid of it. It's about exposing the light to it and then watching the beautiful gifts come from that. It's magical the way it works.
And this kind of sense of acceptance of that part of ourselves, if we can't go to the place of love with our shadow, we can at least go to the place of acceptance that this is part of who we are, and build from that, I think, which allows us then to step into the wholeness of who we are, because often it's when we're not working with the whole of who we are that we can't move forwards in some way. It's going to keep coming up for us until, especially at the moment, until we have the courage to dive deeper in and find out what's lurking there in the shadows.
Absolutely. And with that, I'm going to go to the other end of the spectrum with my second belief, which is something really that's arisen for me this year. And I've spoken to you about it before, but it really does feel like it's a new, really comfortable truth for me. And it's a Rumi quote, and it's actually what I wear around my neck. And that is that the soul is here for its own joy. And just those words, I mean, I've sat with those words for many, many years, but I actually feel them to be true for the first time this year. And with joy, like, I mean, I think we've got to pull apart what joy is, because joy for me is not happiness. Joy is a state of aliveness. It's feeling that the energy force through your life. And you know, there's been so much talk about what's my life purpose, what am I here to do or to be, and ultimately, if we frame it with following our joy, it leads you to feeling more alive, or it leads me to feeling more alive. So I've kind of reframed everything to be following my joy. And as I say, that doesn't necessarily need to be following my happiness. Following what makes me feel alive could be shadow work, working with others in their shadow, or it could be my art, my painting. It's just almost a guiding, a North Star of if I follow that place of aliveness, of joy, then my world opens up in a whole different way. It honestly, Fee, when I reframed that, it felt like so much just clicked into place. That was just even a degree or two out. That was a really big one for me this year.
Oh, I love that one. And I haven't heard that Rumi quote before, but my own experience of that has been through the Akasha. When I very first started working in the Akashic Records, and I was really exploring what the soul was and asking lots of questions about the soul, and learning to understand, where the soul comes from, and what the soul is, that big question. And one of the things I was shown, that the soul is here to create a life of joy. And that was something that I have used ever since then. It was given to me through the Akasha, and I thought, yeah, that makes perfect sense, because again, I think we've misrepresented this life purpose thing in the spiritual community. It often gets spoken to as something you're here to do, when in fact the soul is here just to have a life of joy, and you can do whatever you want to create that for yourself as the soul. So I love that that is one of your truths that you're working with at this time, and it feels very true to me too.
And I think we can get stuck on what it is that brings us joy. So, and frame that as our purpose, right? And that's where I think it gets into that sticky place of what's my purpose. It's actually there could be many ways to find that place of aliveness. And that's just part of the path, not the actual thing we're here for. I think as humans experiencing this life in the most alive way as possible, and that requires being so present.
Yes.
It requires not having the distractions of things and ways to be. There's so much, again, of that kind of unbecoming to discover that place of aliveness. And I believe that to be, it's true as anything, that we're here to experience life from as much of a conscious place as possible. It's kind of what we are as humans, why we've been given the ability of consciousness. Some people describe it as the universe experiencing itself. And I think that is a perfect way to describe humans, is the universe experiencing itself.
Yes, I love that. And there was something you said there that I felt really drawn to, and that was the piece around being really present. Because I feel like if we are in a state of presence and gratitude, we are naturally in a state of joy, as I see it. So, that's one of those places that brings us into that soul experience of joy.
Yeah, and that place of presence. I mean, so many people speak of that place, and it kind of feels like, this intangible place of presence, that the more you spend time in the presence, the more you realize how much you don't spend time in the present. It's almost like the longer you are in the present, it's you can stretch that time. And I think we even spoke to this in our last podcast, Fee, when you were talking about a moment with Clive, where you were able to step into this, you were able to stop and question something. And I think that is about being present, is not falling into our patterns and being able to see our patterns in a different way. And again, that's kind of this alive state, this place of having that life force really right there, tapping into it.
I love that. So let's dive into your third one.
I will. And my third one, I'll turn the page because I can't remember which one I chose. And I guess this comes along with that, actually. That one leads on to this next place, which is that for me, everything that happens for a reason. I don't believe in coincidence or mistakes. I believe that life's handing me exactly what I need in any given moment to move forward. So when I discovered this, my life just felt like I'd fallen into magic, because the amount, once you understand that every single thing that comes to you, every person, every emotion, every circumstance there for a reason and there for a purpose, it becomes this mystery that you're trying to solve. That's the way I see it. I mean, I'm constantly looking at signs, and I'm constantly translating them and making meaning from them. And I really believe this to be true, that whenever you might see a coincidence in front of you, just reframe it, because it's there to teach you something or to guide you towards something. And that's not always necessarily something that looks pretty or happy, or there's again balance in that. There could be something happening that makes you uncomfortable, or that isn't much fun. And that is, I still believe that life is happening for me, not to me. So whatever I'm presented with, there's a way forward that I can move through it with grace, and with if I reframe it that it's happening for me, then it takes on a whole different level of richness for me. And I don't get stuck in that why me place, or that place doesn't really happen for me much. And even stuff that comes up that I can witness in myself, if I just think through, okay, what is that about, why and that stops me projecting onto other people. If I can feel stuff arising in me in a circumstance, then it's like, well, okay, this is about me, this isn't about that other person, this is happening for me, not for that other person. So I just need to reframe it. And look, that's an ongoing journey. It's not something that I've solved or that I do all the time. I don't know that any of us will. I think it's just a path. And again, it's kind of a North Star. It's when something feels off, I try and find my way back to, okay, where was that trying to lead me? What was that trying to show me? And then I can get myself back onto that flow or life force, or probably flow is the best word for it.
Yeah,
so that's my third.
I love that one too. I was hoping you were going to give us the magic formula for how that how that worked, but the framing of, or the reframing from 2 to 4 is, I think, so powerful. I love that, because when you start to think of it in terms of this is happening for me instead of to me, straight away it brings you into a different heart space. It brings you into an acknowledgement that there's something here for you, rather than something you don't have control over that's happening to you, which makes you feel disempowered. So for you actually makes you feel empowered in the situation to dive in and see what is surfacing around that.
Absolutely. And well, I did actually have an example of.
Oh, I love that.
which I know but we know so much about each other that this morning funnily enough, I was trying to, I chose the 2 cards, and I was trying to work out which one was for the week and which one was for the month. So I was trying to find my pendulum. I don't use a pendulum, but to get a yes and no, it was just a perfect way of getting a yes and no. And so I was looking through my my crystals to try and find my pendulum. Couldn't find it, but spotted my beautiful stone that I found at Broken Hill. And I haven't picked this up since we were at Uluru, because the story will unfold, but I haven't picked this up for a year at least. And I just picked it up. I couldn't find my pendulum. I picked up the stone, and it was actually then that I started to realize why I did. And that was the story of this, because this you and I both went on a retreat with Jane and Jackie, who've been on the Truth series, to Broken Hill and up into the Flinders Ranges to Arkaroola. Most amazing, beautiful journey that we've taken together. And at Broken Hill, I was in out the back, which is very much the outback scrub. Not a lot going on out there, just kangaroos and red dirt and crystals, but mostly, if you go for a walk out there, there's a lot of what's the stone that's out there, the pink and white?
Oh, the quartz.
Quartz. It's just a lot of quartz. And out of the corner of my eye, I was looking at all the kangaroos, and they sort of come in for feeding. And I was actually outside the property, but I just spotted this. There was just this stone that looked like it had been painted. So I just picked it up and took it back to my room and actually washed it. And it was this one. And it was just so blue. I mean, I don't think you can really see how blue it is. And it was so at odds in the red dirt. And just loved it and just knew that there was something in it. And the other part of the story is, and please don't think I'm too wacky, but when we were out there, I was getting a lot of messages from above. So everywhere we stayed when we went there, it seemed that my bed would face a window no matter what direction. But at the nighttime, I would see the planet Sirius shining at me. It was almost like this beacon sending out messages. And so much of what I received when I was there felt like it was a message from Sirius. That was just the way it is. I mean, I got so many insights. It was beautiful when I opened myself to that place. So that's what happened when I was out at Broken Hill. When I came back, my beautiful girlfriend Danielle found a card. It's in an Isis deck, and Isis is Sirius. Isis is known from the Egyptian time to be the star of Sirius. I'm sorry, the goddess of Sirius, or the one and the same, really. And when I got back, she found this card, and I have the deck as well. And it is from the Isis deck. And it just struck me as incredible to find the stone was exactly the same shape and the same color. And it's the lapis stone, of which I believe this to be, or one that's very close, because she names a few blue stones in this deck. But to come back, or to find the stone that's in the same shape in the deck of Isis, when I was also having these experiences with Sirius, that's kind of what I was sort of meaning about. Like, there's just no mistakes or coincidences. I mean, that could feel like the biggest coincidence, but it's just that I can't name how many times things like that have happened to me in the past. And it's magic. And, you know, we can, I'm sure it happens to everybody, but so many of us don't pick up on the signs and follow them through and follow them. Sometimes it can take years to unfold, as this has, because this has got a longer story with me. But it's just willing to take that next step that gave me something, and I just follow. Okay, what's this? I don't know what it is, but I'm just going to take that next step, because I know eventually it's going to lead me somewhere that I need to be, or that I need to know on the next step of my journey. That was just to give a little bit of reference to that.
Beautiful. And I know I've been with you on many occasions when these synchronicities have unfolded, and it's been beautiful to watch how powerfully you go into the openness to those and follow those threads for yourself with your intuition and everything. And I think you're right, you know, sometimes we just shut it out, or we don't accept it, or we don't allow it. But when we step into it, it just almost opens up a whole new experience for ourselves when we allow ourselves to be guided in such a powerful way.
Well, it opens up a whole different world, you know, hence the other world, right? There is this whole other world that I think for the very longest time, most people haven't opened themselves to. And I guess that in a way is what the other world's about. It's like helping people understand that there's this different level of language that can guide you. And I love it that when we're speaking about truths, and instantly I went to, what do I believe to be true in a knowing way? Sorry, in a mind way. What scientifically is provable? And it was actually dropping into that other place, that place of knowing, that then it became very easy, because then it's like, oh, and particularly for a truth seeker like myself, it has to feel pretty bloody solid for me to actually really feel this is truth. It's I came up with a lot and just went, okay, belief. What do I really know to be true? And there's as a truth seeker, it has to feel very solid for me to feel that place, even though it's the intangible other world.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, thank you, Deni, for sharing your 3 most powerful truths at this time. I'm sure that everyone is going to get a lot out of that, and will be able to sort of take those truths and feel into them themselves and see where they find their place of truth with them. I also feel like anyone that listens to the podcast has got a little bit of an insight into you and your experience, and learned a little bit more about you, which is beautiful too. And thank you for taking up the challenge and the journey that you went on.
Thank you. And I look forward to doing this in return.
Me too. Thank you.
It feels like now's the time to start talking about the community that we're building, because on the basis of building a new way, we're in the midst of building a new community for the other world. And it's not there yet, but I'm so excited. I have so much energy behind this community, and bringing together people to talk about these things, and to learn and to transform together, and to keep each other on path by having these conversations. I think there's nothing more powerful than a group that have that intention, that can really bring up things for us to actually bring into action and bring into our everyday lives. So this place of the Other World Collective, there's going to be stuff that we're going to put up about this in the next couple of weeks. So if you're interested, either get in contact with us or have a look, get on our mailing list, because we will be sending information out about it. But I'm excited about it. I can't wait to dive in.
Yeah, me too. I mean, it's a new way of working. It's a new way of gathering together in groups, in circle together, which I really love. It feels very now and of the moment. And, and I think, well, you and I both love to work in circle. We love to work in groups of women. And I think that at this time, we're really seeking ways to find kind of a way to do that when we're often not able to meet physically, but can still meet and gather in a space that feels really supportive and loving, and you feel held in it. So yes, both very excited about this new offering that will be out shortly.
And I also love the fact that it isn't on Facebook, it's not on WhatsApp, it's not on Insta. It's a totally new platform that feels really clean, and a really held private container. That piece I'm excited about almost more than anything else.
Yeah, I mean, I think you and I have both felt a sort of stickiness or uncomfortableness with the normal social media outlets that we've been using over the past few years, and so it is nice to have something different to focus our energy on, which actually feels really aligned to the way that we work as well, which is beautiful.
So if you've enjoyed the weekly reading, and if you would like to see more of the weekly reading, it always feels a bit sticky for us to bring this up, but it would really help us if you followed or subscribed or left a comment or asked a question. That helps this go to more people. And it's something that we've struggled with actually putting at the end of the podcast, but we've decided that we want to serve more, and that's the way it works on these platforms.
Yeah, I think the desire to be of service to more people at this time, to help more people, or to give some people an insight into the week ahead, has become greater than the uncomfortableness of actually speaking to it in the way we are now. So we're diving in, and anything that you do along those lines, following us, commenting, sharing, all of those things help to get that information out to people to help them. So we're very grateful if you can do that. That would be great.